defensive backfield at cornerback. Mike Rodak covers the Alabama for CBS Sports in 247, joins us on 365 Sports. Mike, thank you very much. Alabama, to me, if there's somebody that can go into the game against UConn and just wing it, that's not a negative, but they can fire the three, number 2 in the country, making threes. It seems like at least that's their chance. Am I right?
Yeah, it's definitely going to have to be a higher scoring game. I mean, this isn't a Alabama team that's going to grind out a game and win with their defense and win with a big man and slow it down. But that's not really how they play. I mean, they've had good defenses in the past. I think that's somewhat of a misconception, is that they don't play defense. They did it really well last year. They did it really well 3 years ago. They have not been good on defense this year. So their offense is really, I think, the key to this. And they've played, pretty well recently. They've shot the ball pretty well against Clemson. They shot the ball really well in the second half against North Carolina. So that's something that Nate Oats has said too, where they want to speed it up, get into a running game, get in transition, and try not to get into a half-court sort of game with UConn. Otherwise, I just don't see them having the right pieces to make that happen.
Mike, this was a team last week that got so hot bombing those threes, but it's like you mentioned, it's not just that. I mean, they've got Clingan in the middle that they have to deal with. Do they have enough size to take him off his game?
So there's, a lot of questions for Alabama, big questions, no pun intended, where they really did not have good games against big men this year. I mean, they got beat 3 games in a row in December against Arizona, Purdue, and Creighton, where Zach Edey had his way against them, and Ryan Kalkbrenner had his way against them for Creighton, and Bio for Arizona. It was an issue. Tennessee, Auburn with Janai Brome, they got beat by a lot of different teams this year, and one of the common themes was the big man. And so you went into the North Carolina games thinking, well, Armando Bacot's going to have a field day. And, they doubled him. He still had, I think, 19 points, but it wasn't overwhelming. And they did a pretty good job against them. And then Clemson, too. P.J. Hall was a guy who back in November tore apart Alabama's front court. They beat Alabama back in November. Clemson did. And this past game, they got P.J. Hall to foul out. I think he was 6 of 14 shooting. So, something's changed, with their front court and the same players, but they're playing harder. They're playing better on defense, and I would give them a little bit of a better shot against Clingan, but Clingan's still probably the best big man that they've seen all year, except for Edey.
Do they just have this fearless ability to not even look at the score sometimes and just keep firing it off? That's what I saw, and I love it because whether they're up 10 or down 10, they just go and play.
Yeah, that's Nate Oats' philosophy. It's just keep shooting. If you're not shooting, if you're passing up open threes, he'll take you out of the game. He gets mad at that because it all comes down to efficiency. And to him, an open three-pointer is one of the most efficient shots that you can take, just like a layup is one of the most efficient shots that you can take. And so if you're taking a higher percentage shot, then he wants you to keep doing that, even if you're not hitting them. So it doesn't mean you're just shooting threes 50 times a game if you're covered, because a covered three-pointer when you're defended is a much lower percentage shot. But if you're open, he wants you to shoot it. No matter what the scoreboard says, no matter what the game situation is, shoot it. So, that's just as part of his philosophy. And, it's obviously worked to get his team to where it is now.
Mike, how much of it has been a breath of fresh air because of some of the off-the-court controversy and stories that they were hit with a year ago, and that this team has just gone out and played?
Yeah, it's a different team. There's only 3 players that are left from last year's team. And, last year's team, was worn down in a couple different ways. Obviously, the Darius Miles, murder charge and, everything that was kind of swirling around Brendan Miller and Jaden Bradley. And that was a team that just by March kind of seemed out of gas. They weren't shooting the ball very well. They were the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, but they got bounced in the Sweet 16. And there were some guys that were kind of banged up too. Miller was hurt in the tournament last year, but it's the team that underachieved. But it was probably a better team, talent-wise, than what this team is. This team, even though they've been banged up a little bit too, just kind of seems to have a better vibe, especially lately. And they've really kind of had this sense of urgency. And they were just on the road for, I think, 12 nights together, going from Spokane out to L.A. And they have just come together at the right time, kind of off the court. And there's, some moments on the court too, where just random guys have stepped up that we weren't really expecting. And that's what you need to go far in a tournament like this.
Mike, does this Final Four run secure Nate Oats where now he's proven he can do it at Alabama, that it would take a pretty large swing from a blue blood to get him out? I know he's kind of a lot of Texas fans on the internet. He's their kind of maybe Nick Saban of basketball, where they always thought Nick Saban's heart laid in Austin, Texas. Do you think Nate Oats could be there really for the long haul now?
Yeah, I mean, I think at least for the short term, it's going to be tough for any other school to pull him out of there. He just signed a contract extension that has an $18 million buyout, really for the next 2 years here. And it does start to go down after that. I would imagine they'll probably try to extend him again. They've done it 3 times already. But there might come a day where, Nate Oats wants to maybe move to a school that is a little bit more of a basketball sort of tradition. I think, Michigan State's kind of the one in everybody's mind because he was a high school coach in Michigan and Tom Izzo's getting towards the end of his career. But at the same time, Nate has a daughter who's a student at Alabama. He has another daughter at high school who may go to Alabama herself. And I think he, enjoys being there. I think he sees it as an opportunity to build Alabama into a basketball school. I think he sees it as a place that really loves college sports and there's a lot of resources. So I don't think he's going to be jumping, and he hasn't to this point, for just any job that's out there. Now, do I think he's going to be the coach of Alabama in 10 or 15 years? I would have doubts about that.
So, Mike, the football team's going through what they go through with Kalen DeBoer. My God, it was like the world stopped for there a little bit when the Nick Saban story came out. He was retiring. How would you say DeBoer and everyone else now has reacted, and where they are, what has it been, like a couple of months later, on what could have been just like the ice broke and everybody fell in the water?
Yeah, no, it's really stabilized. I think, there's obviously a lot of losses through the portal. I think 30 guys total. A lot of those actually happened before Kalen DeBoer even set foot on campus. There's a lot of guys who had left when Saban was still technically the coach. And I think now that, they've gotten Caden Proctor, who was one of the guys who left through the portal, the 5-star offensive lineman, he's coming back from Iowa. That was a big win for them. I think one of the big questions for DeBoer was recruiting the South, because he's not from here, doesn't really have any experience here. And they've already picked up a few guys over the last few weeks that have started to, prove that they can recruit here. So, there's been little wins here and there. And, I think we're all going to see the product on the field in another 10 days here when they have their spring game. And I'm sure, it may not look the most polished because it's a new system and there's a lot of new players. But, overall, I think, it could have gone further south than it did, certainly. And, they kept things reasonably under control for that really crazy week. And, they've started to build things back up over the last month or two here.
So just go ahead and say it now. They don't care about football anymore in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's a basketball school.
Well, yeah, I was talking to the athletic director, Greg Byrne, on the court after they just beat Clemson. I said, "You guys still have a football team?" And he's like, "Yeah, baby." It's different, but honestly, most of the reporters this week are going to be out in Phoenix at the Final Four. There's 3 different press conferences for football, and I don't know how many people are going to be there to talk to Kalen DeBoer. Never would have thought that.
Where were you when the news of Saban hit?
I was actually at the gym. I had kind of heard about it, that it might happen, and I was a little bit in disbelief or just not wanting to believe it. And I said, "Oh man, I really want to get a workout in today." So I get to the gym, and then 4:04, I think I checked my phone, and sure enough, it happened. And needless to say, I was in scramble mode from there.
Has Nick Saban been to Rama Jammas yet? Now that he knows it exists.
Right. Yeah. I don't think he has, but people, that was an ESPN article that said, he didn't know it was there. He didn't know what it was. And this is like an iconic place in Tuscaloosa. People said, "Oh, he's just kidding. He's joking." He is not. Believe me, Nick Saban lived in his own bubble. Like, he absolutely did not know that was a thing in Tuscaloosa. So he's starting to open up a little bit. He's starting to kind of see the world. He's just kind of the quintessential tunnel vision sort of guy when he was a coach for a very, very long time, and it worked out really well.
Mike, you know what I can't believe? I can't believe he wasn't there for like a photo shoot or just, I mean, any kind of thing ever in 17 years on that. Like, it's not like it's far from the stadium.
Isn't it like a block or two away?
No, it's like, it's almost, it feels like it's connected to it. It's the first place I went when I went to Tuscaloosa. Like I went there. We waited a long time for a table and sat down so I could say we got the full experience. Like, just to never to have like a, him and the mascot and 3 players and like, or some kind of thing for a magazine, a newspaper, a website, nothing blows my mind.
He moved around, though, like he was the president of the United States. I mean, there's the security detail, the 2 state troopers, the Mercedes, SUVs in front of him. Like, it was a convoy. And he was always just so regimented. And, all right, if I'm doing this, I have this person handling this for me. And I'm, they're opening the door. And it just, he lived that life for, 17 years at Alabama and just never really ventured outside of that. I think even that ESPN article said he went to the pharmacy for the first time to pick up his own prescription, and he went to the grocery store. Like, he never did those things. Absolutely believe that. Like, all that was done for him. So yeah, that's who he was. He just went into the facility every day, went to his office, and tried not to be out in the public eye too much.
Well, I remember either the evening of the announcement when it came out, or the next day when he arrived at the Alabama offices, that he got out of his car, looked like a really nice, like a Beamer or whatever it was, Lexus, whatever it might be, and he had somebody come walking around to take his car probably and park it, had somebody there waiting for him at the door. And I mean, he's that powerful, but I never felt like he let that get in his head. Like, he preaches what it's like about team and individuals working together, and I never felt like he ever really went down the wrong rabbit hole. The story about the pharmacy and the grocery store is hilarious. I mean, it's like he's like moved into a different country.
Could you imagine just being the pharmacist and he like walks in as like Nick Saban for my Lipitor, and they're like, what?
That was really good.
Does he even need to say his name? I mean, what's your date of birth? Let me confirm that you're who you are.
Mike, what were the initial thoughts? And again, thanks for your time on both the men in the Final Four and also Alabama football. What were your thoughts on the DeBoer when he was hired? Was there any thought at all that Jalen Milroe, the fit, even though he had a really great ending to the year, although the last call against Notre Dame didn't go well, was there any thought that he might not stay at Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely, for a lot of the players, kind of that process of what are my options. And I would imagine for Jalen Milroe, given some of his success last year, like, were there other schools probably calling him with pretty big offers?
Name your price, right?
Right. Yeah, I don't doubt that for a second. But, Jalen, I think, is a very loyal guy to Alabama. He's kind of his own regimented guy himself. I mean, he's in the facility at 4 a.m. every day. Like, he's very, very focused himself. And it just didn't seem like he wanted to stray from where he had been, that path that he was on. So, look, I think for now, Kalen DeBoer is certainly all in on Jalen Milroe. He's had a lot of great things to say about him this spring. Is he the best right fit for this offense under Kalen DeBoer? I think we'll just have to see. I think they're going to run with it. I think DeBoer's trying to be flexible. I don't think, it's a precision passing offense. I don't think that's necessarily Jalen's strength. He's more of a home run hitter in terms of the running and his arm, but we'll see. They can make it work. That's a marriage I think they're going to try to make work here.
Well, one thing I was told, Kim, on our chat room, Mike, was that again, Saban owns a Mercedes dealership. We know that. That's what he was driving, not something else. That's what he was most likely driving. Mike, great stuff, man. I watch your timeline. You do a great job covering Bama. Thanks for your time, and hope we get you on again down the road. Have a great day.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys.
Mike Rodak, 247, covers Alabama, with us on